BMW, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, BMW, BMW, Audi. I've been standing here for 10 minutes now, and every single luxury saloon car that's come past has been either a Merc, a BMW, or an Audi. It's like they're the only ones that you can buy, or at least the only decent ones. Thing is, I reckon most people are missing a trick. I think there's one car that's prettier and better to drive than all of those. And as luck would have it, it's just been updated. Welcome to the 2023 Alfa Romeo Giulia. It's been around since 2016, which is a long time, but over the last 7 years, it's slowly been tweaked and improved to the point where we are now. It's always been good, but now it's better than ever. The changes for the 2023 model are subtle but noticeable. The headlamps have been given the tonale treatment, now showcasing the 3x3 pattern inspired by the late 80s SZ. There's also new tail lamps, new colours including the gorgeous matte moonlight grey, a new trim level and tweaks to the interior. The most obvious of which is the introduction of a new 12.3-inch digital dashboard display. It's every bit as crisp and as attractive as its German rivals, and it's also got this wonderful heritage display option which harks back to 1960s Alfa Romeos with its analogue dials. It even has the inverted numbers the further you go around the dial, so you can see with absolute clarity when you're doing 160 miles an hour. And like the rest of the car, this interior has evolved. I remember sitting in an early Giulia in 2016, and despite the fact there were some lovely design touches which have been carried over, such as this swooping dashboard and the steering wheel and that little tricolore flag by the gear lever, there were some rough edges, literally. If you put your hand behind the gear lever, you'd find a horrible piece of really sharp plastic that just was not very nice to touch at all. But that's now been fixed. It's got a nice smooth piece of leather there. And while I won't claim that the rest of the interior, such as the infotainment system and actually a lot of the electronics, they're not as good as its German rivals, this is still a lovely place to sit. The driving position is spot on, and I mentioned those dials before, but they really do look seriously classy. Great, I hear you say. It's got a nice cabin. But come on, it's an Alfa Romeo. How much of it will actually be working after 20,000 miles? Well, all I can say is I ran a pre-facelift Giulia Veloce for sister title Parker's Cars for 8 months back in 2022, and nothing went wrong. It no doubt helps that Alfa has been building these things for years, so they should have identified and removed any potential issues. However, one thing that Alfa Romeo hasn't had to touch is what the Giulia is like on the road. Honestly, the way this car drives is magical, and there's very good reasons behind it. Perhaps the most important one is the Giulia's low curb weight. Coming in at just 1,429 kilograms, it's over 150 kilograms lighter than a BMW 3 Series. And that makes a difference. Alfa's achieved this by using lightweight materials such as carbon fibre for the drive shaft and aluminium for items such as the doors, wings and front and rear subframes. Weight distribution is a perfect 50-50 split across axles, while 4-arm Alfa Link rear suspension and a double wishbone front setup are perfect for crisp cornering. With most cars now, we're drilled into thinking that if you want a comfortable ride and agile handling, you need adaptive dampers. The alternative is a passive setup where you get one or the other, or more often than not, a half-assed compromise of them both. But not in this. Alfa Romeo's engineers have done an incredible job with the passive suspension. Honestly, you can go over a speed bump in this and barely feel it, such as the way that the car isolates the bump from the cabin. It's honestly like witchcraft. But then the really clever bit comes when you approach a corner. Turn it into this third gear right-hander and the car still stays super flat and composed, and it's got a lovely neutral balance. The front end, it darts in and it feels super light on its toes. The steering is also super responsive and quick. It takes some getting used to if you just hopped out of an Audi or Mercedes-Benz, for example, but once you do get used to it, you do wonder if you're going to be able to go back to a slower setup, because it's just so quick to turn into a corner, but it doesn't feel like it's too much. At least it doesn't after you do get the hang of it.
For what it's worth, you can buy the Giulia with adaptive dampers. The Competizione trim includes them as standard. But seriously? Don't bother. They're no better than the passive setup and don't offer the same sweet balance between comfort and sportiness.
Of course, other cars in this class drive well. The Jag XE and the BMW 3 Series are two very good examples, but for pure driver enjoyment, this thing is the best. You still haven't got a manual gearbox or anything like that, but then the paddles that come standard with this car are phenomenal. These big metal units that feel and work so nicely. So many cars overlook the paddles, even more expensive sports cars, yet this executive saloon, they're just a work of art.
The Giulia's ability to turn heads and transform mundane drives into a free-flowing rhythm of peerless handling and poise is what sets it apart. Journeys instantly become more fun as soon as the prospect of taking the Alfa becomes reality. If I was being critical, which I probably should be, then I don't think the 2-litre engine is as polished as the equivalents from Audi or BMW. It's quick, 280 horsepower takes care of that, but it doesn't quite match up to the rest of the driving experience. The gearbox too isn't as crisp as a DSG equivalent, and you do notice this when you're driving around town or when you're pushing on.
But even with all that in mind though, this is still the car that you buy if you love cars. If you want 96 shades of ambient lighting and the latest infotainment system, then get a BMW or Mercedes or an Audi. They are very good cars. But if you love driving and you want a sensible, everyday saloon that also looks fantastic and drives better than any other car in this class, then the Giulia is the one that you need to get. I dare you to disagree with me. I dare you to give me one good reason why this isn't where your money should go. I know it's 7 years old now, but for me, it's still the best.